I'm never ready. That's
Guys, look what I did to the layout. I was experimenting.
Travis, I paid you.
And I figured out how to get rid of the dark gray background, so now all of your videos are like segmented, little rounded corners, and
Oh, I gotta pull up the stream. Hold on.
Okay.
yeah, I figured it out.
That's awesome.
Wait, are we live? Hello?
Yeah. Everyone make some noise.
Forget about it.
I'm walking in.
I'm
Okay, there's
streaming here.
I'm being murdered over here. Hello, everyone.
Are we still talking?
No,
oh
you're
my
fine.
god, that's awful,
Okay.
dude. I literally just heard that scream again through the.
Logan should have been more specific.
I did just say make some
talk.
noise.
He didn't say.
No, he said make a noise.
Okay, sure.
Wait, what color is a yak?
Whatever color you
Brown?
want it to be.
Yeah,
White?
I feel like they're usually
Cream colored?
Brown colored fur, like
Eggshell?
whitish brown fur.
It
Taupe?
probably varies.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
It's dark colored, like just usually like generally like a dark shade of some kind.
What about pea yellow?
I'm just
like
gonna let the artist
snow
determine this.
in
How
this-
about that?
Hey,
I'm gonna
Alan,
Alive.
Okay.
has anyone ever told you? Stop.
Sorry,
some
we're live. Hey guys.
as J Todd says, say less.
welcome to the welcome to the NeverSayDice channel.
Yeah.
Welcome to the pee pee poo poo stream.
Welcome to the last stream of the Sharn Nights campaign, which
Thank
seems
you,
a fitting
Carson.
send-off.
Thank you, Carson.
Yeah, thank you, Carson. So yes, Carson is right. This will likely be like the last real campaign thing. We'll do a couple one shots. We'll do an after dark to answer all of my players' burning questions, and maybe not so burning questions, but this is like kind of like the last send off to kind of wrap up what all just happened. And then to kind of talk about what they want for their character. So it's going to be a lot of just talking, exploring, and chatting about what's in store for them. Maybe throwing a few nice little twists for them. But it's going to be a nice just little chat. We're a little more relaxed. I got my chicken tenders and fries next to me. I got something to drink.
Tendies.
Apparently comeback sauce is like a universal thing now. It's not the same as like the sauce, but it's fine.
Isn't that pretty basic, honestly? I thought
it
that
is.
like.
I mean, it's probably just a house sauce. It's like
Yeah,
mayo.
it's a house sauce.
It's some
Barbecue
kind of
mustard.
aioli, honestly.
Yeah.
Aioli.
Some granola.
Some granola. Besides that, no announcements. Just all the usual stuff. Patreon, DMs Guild, yada yada. This weekend was different. Had a busy family weekend, so I did not get to post on Patreon as much as I'd liked, but that just opened me up to post some more this week. But besides that, I'm ready to jump in. How about you guys?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, this scene doesn't have all my music stuff in, so we're just gonna have the nice little quiet piano music going on the whole time. Ooh, no, there we go. Let's do that. Classic jazz music we always use. So, we're not gonna do an RP warm-up, we'll just do a kind of brief recap, because I think we all know what happened. And for people at home, if you don't know what happened and you're watching the epilogue first for some reason, just don't do that and go watch the other sessions. That's all I gotta say about that.
Worth it.
But you guys closed a case, more or less. There's still plenty of work to be done. But you closed the case of E39, or Death Knell, the house killer, whoever this person is. You essentially caught her in the act, so to speak, and very swiftly led to her arrest, and now it's just a matter of the King's Citadel and you guys getting as much information from her, all of her assassins, everyone, to really put this case to bed. But of course, that will take days, even weeks, and maybe even months, depending. Because, as you guys have learned, her web is big. But, we're not really necessarily going to focus on the interrogations and the questioning and all of that stuff. We're going to focus on you guys. Because between, of course, you can take some excused absences, some PTO from work for free. You get the week off. But even with standing at the King's Citadel, questioning and also being questioned, giving up evidence, and then meeting up to prepare for whatever daelkyr stuff might be going on in a couple days, you're still busy as ever. But along with that of what you guys are going through during these past couple days, or the next few days, I also want to kind of get you guys to talk about, like, effectively, what does the future hold for your characters? Assuming the daelkyr stuff is taken care of, the case is wrapped up, what does the next step look like? Because you guys have so been entrenched in this thing for however many weeks now, and who knows where you might end up. You've definitely had some changes of heart and new experiences throughout all of this, so I'm curious to hear you talk about that. So kind of, I like structure, I like a system. They're essentially, sort of two things that I'm going to get from each of you, but then, of course, as we talk, we'll explore and continue asking questions and tell a good story. But the two things I want to know from you guys is, of course, kind of what is your next steps after the daelkyr stuff? What, you know, with your job or school, your family, yourself, the city, whatever it might be, where are you going? And then also, we don't have time to completely answer every single question here, but I still want to give you guys a little bit of closure as investigators. Each of you can ask one question regarding the investigation, an event, a person, a thing, whatever it might be, regarding E39 and the house killer and all that stuff, and I can answer that for you. Just so that way you can kind of get a little bit more peek behind the curtain of the grander scheme, and so that way you're not completely out of the loop as far as the interrogations and questioning goes. And then, of course, during an After Dark, then you can really ask the questions you want to know. Like, what about that goblin tattoo artist, Rollo Robbins? What happened to him? Where'd he go?
Integral to the whole scheme. A linchpin.
Yeah, Logan, you really took away someone's one question.
Yeah.
Sorry, Al.
I think that's all the questions I have.
That was it. Yeah, we're done.
Goodbye, guys.
So yes, what does future look like after daelkyr and the case is officially closed, and what one question do you want answered about the investigation? So of course, the night of the as the encounter at the Aurora Gallery, the King's Citadel comes in full force to grab as many of those assassins as they could, pull you guys to the side, take E39 off to be treated, collecting Ray's body to be spoken to, checking all the Aurora Gallery building, keeping it locked down, talking to the Aurum and the staff, like just everything. But of course, something you notice is that the Order of the Alley manages to slip away and avoid any kind of confrontation with the law. But you're probably kept up far too late that night, after already a couple of late nights. Not necessarily you guys, of course you're brought in for questioning, they take your statements about the events, but you're mostly, at this point, reputation is earned. Usid keeps her job, even though she was a little bit in hot water. So she, of course, thanks you all, invites you up to her office for drinks. You can doff whatever fine clothes you're wearing, and sort of take a breather. So we'll start with Alan, because
Hey.
Alan actually has two characters that we want to hear from and hear about.
Yeah.
So Alan,
Roman and fish lifeguard guy.
and Roman did Madooni. So yes, Alan. So the first two prompts, what's one question you want answered about the investigation? And also, what does Killian's next steps look like? I know previously you'd kind of mentioned like his relationship with the law was kind of influenced a bit. So yeah, it's up to you.
Oh, in any order?
Yeah, anywhere. You can start with the investigation question, or do the next steps thing, or you can just vamp and talk about whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Yeah, what happens to Rickon now? Because E39 was kind of the reason he got his reputation tarnished, and now that she's like, her schemes are in the spotlight, does that affect him at all, or is he still gonna be, you know, going under this pseudonym and like, whatever?
With that, I might answer a separate question. She sort of admits that she was not the one who wrote that letter.
Oh.
And then for Rickon's side, if that wasn't necessarily the case, he has lived in hiding a long time. He is old. So he'll probably keep doing the pseudonym thing. Plus, he also, he says it's fun. Play a little different personality and be like a little new guy. So it's still fun, but he says if the King's Citadel will have him, he may be willing to help, but he's too old, and that's kind of what he's putting onto these new investigators.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of living a life of in retirement, but
Cool.
a little bit more at ease because of all of this being wrapped up.
Yeah, sense of closure.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
What was the next thing?
What does Killian's life look like, provided that the case closes smoothly and daelkyr are taken care of? Essentially, what is Killian looking forward to in the future, or what does he have to live for, and when facing the daelkyr?
Oh man. Can I do Wendelin too?
That's why I went with Killian first, and then we'll do a few
Okay.
others, and we'll bring Gwendolyn back. Cause yeah,
Killian.
bless you.
Killian's gonna take a break, at least, from the King's Citadel. Not like quitting or retiring, but just like, I guess kind of like a sabbatical type of thing of like,
Leave of absence.
you know,
Personal
yeah.
leave.
Yeah. Just kind of like, the things that have been happening in this case, him kind of like being a bit careless during like the Broken Bridge Brawlers riot, and also like he's kind of putting a lot of the blame of Spike's death on himself. And so it's kind of like, should I, keep doing this? Should I kind of try and pursue something else or whatever? Like, just kind of a lot of things, a lot of feelings and stuff. So he's just kind of taking a break from all that side of Sharn. And yeah, I guess he's going to start with taking his kids to like, I don't know, is there like a Sharn King's Dominion for Six Flags?
Sharn Dominion.
Sharn's News World.
Sharn World. Oh man.
It's a Sharn world after all.
So Alan, that actually leaves
Epcot.
me. Were you about to come up with something else?
Huh? No, just
You
an
just said Epcot.
Yeah.
So that kind of leaves me Wet and Sharn, Wet and Wild.
Ugh.
That's a
I don't think
different
that
place
works.
in Sharn.
No.
You made a choice.
So Alan, that leaves me with a couple follow-ups.
Yeah.
Is Killian going to help Oleg with this daelkyr stuff, or are you gonna like go on vacation and leave these private investigators to their business? Because that's kind of what they were. They were just like temporary co-workers.
The daelkyr, isn't that deadline like next week or something?
Oh yeah, it's in like 5 days or something, 4 days.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess he should probably help out if Oleg is okay with that. Yeah, and he's off the clock, so he's not gonna narc at all.
Totally, definitely.
Is Oleg in a position to refuse help?
Oleg pretty much just looks destroyed. I don't know, like at this point, like if anybody offered to help, he'd just be like, yeah.
Yes, whatever, thank you. And I guess the last follow-up question.
I got some Arabica beans.
Oh, Arabic just
Arabica.
raw,
You, Oleg.
just
Yeah, Arabica.
scarf them down. And with a lot of these things, it's gonna be a lot of what if, because who knows what will happen during the daelkyr stuff? Who knows? So there's a lot of what ifs. This is the ideal situation, and so it's just something to hope for in our wonderful investigators.
Yeah, maybe we all die. And
Yeah, you can
none
all
of this
die
matters.
enslaved by the daelkyr.
Yeah.
It's done.
Well, you don't have to worry about the future.
Fuck the future. So I guess
The next Sharn series revolves around Squinch's kid.
half rat, half imp.
Please. Please no.
Yeah.
Please no.
Like a tiefling. Yeah, what are they called? Like wrestlings, rat folk. It's an earlier edition race for D&D.
His name is Squinch.
Squanch.
So Killian, my last follow-up,
Yeah.
sort of a what if. This was a big case for the King's Citadel, and once it's all unfolded and the story sort of gets written about, it's going to be a kind of a big thing. Even though it didn't culminate as much as it could have, it's still kind of a scary thing. Which, of course, would propel people in the King's Citadel that were involved into new heights and promotions and job titles and things. So what if Dark Lantern Usid got a big hefty promotion, and as her partner, you would receive the promotion to her position as sort of a Dark Lantern leadership. You would control a team of spies and Dark Lanterns, and would also be able to like contract out like people like these investigators. Would Killian do something like that? Or would you let the creamer bot get promoted?
Give Creamer a job.
Stick him up, punk! Shoots hot
Kramer
coffee.
controls the government.
Yeah.
It's like the
The
yogurt
Creamer is actually
episode.
just a large Creamer bot.
Yeah. It makes me think of the yogurt
uh,
episode of Love, Death, and Robots.
Kramer is Skynet.
Skynet.
That's how it starts.
Yeah, with Skynet.
I
The
think
yogurt episode is good. It's so good.
I think there'd be a good chance. Yeah. Kind of taking more of like a overseeing kind of job. And I'll save that for later.
Okay. Any final thoughts about Killian, his future life, the investigation, etc.?
He's gonna invest in feather coins, featherfall tokens.
Feathercoin, the new currency that's coming out.
Just like whoever, I don't know, maybe it's a business. He'll invest in an up and coming business, or whatever is already built. The infrastructure for featherfall tokens.
I hate it here.
Yeah. I feel like an analog for this in the real world would be like if Killian was investing in like a monopoly on seatbelts.
Like, have you
Yeah.
guys heard of these seatbelts? And I'm like,
Yeah.
Or like, I
Yeah.
guess
I'll be
I guess
like-
more accurately would be he accidentally cuts somebody's parachute and causes them to die, so he starts investing in parachute companies
Yeah.
out of guilt.
Check out this rugged coin.
oh my god.
Twice the feather fall.
Twice the feather, none of the fall.
That's a good one.
That was
That
good.
is a
Thank
good
you. Alrighty. And that answered the questions that I had. Now let's bounce around to some people who are not of the law or the upper city. Cornelius. So again, the sort of two prompts of question you want answered while during this investigation, and also what does your life look like after the fact.
What was the definitive starting reason for the whole house killer thing? What set it off? Because this obviously goes back a long way.
The first answer you would probably hear is it was an accident. The second answer would be grief, because she got word that her husband had died in the war, and then he popped up again. The reason why she says it was an accident is because that House Thrashk dignitary that was visiting, it was sort of a crime of opportunity. It was just something that was not necessarily premeditated, but then once it happened, it just sort of sparked an idea. She went to work. That's why there was sort of a slight gap between the first murder and the other two after that. So it was both grief and an accident. Okay. And then what's Cornelius's future look like?
Cornelius goes back to living in his little one-bedroom apartment office. But he spends a lot more time at the Biblioteca del Prisma with Ipa, trying to get a grasp on what it really means to be Kalishtar. But it's like when he's there, he's like trying to search out ways to like basically spends his time like working with Ipa to try to figure out like what is this, like this, you know, what does this all mean? What's the connection between oh fuck, I can't remember her name. Ishara, and what's the connection to Wolfira, the one before her, and just like why, like what's the connection with those and where he came from, trying to like solve the mystery of like how did he get here and why is he here and what happened to him. But it's one of those things like when he returns to the office and he sits down at his desk and he pulls out a shot glass, he is always on the edge, like on edge, waiting for the next time he pulls a glass out for it to be filled with that creepy silver liquid that he's used to seeing. So it's like kind of like a race again. He's basically like racing against whatever is trying to get back to him and solving like how he came to be and stuff. Like he still takes light cases, but he still takes cases and stuff, but he spends a lot more of his time with Ipa trying to figure out his own personal mystery,
Like
instead of everyone
else's.
else's.
Cases of like catching a cat.
I never watched Naruto, sorry.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Fetch quest cases.
But essentially kind of like reaches the point after that of like, okay, I think it's time to figure out my own mysteries instead of everyone else's.
Ooh.
and spends less time. Still takes light cases because he still needs to keep the rent up, but spends a lot more time working at the Biblioteca del Prisma with Ipa, trying to figure that out. Maybe tries to get a second job there, just cataloging shit so that he can spend more time there doing research, kind of like diving headlong into that.
Yeah. And I think probably what would happen kind of quickly if you're devoting so much time to discovering these things is probably you start learning about these sort of, not necessarily underground, but these communities of spirituality that are in Sharn that you probably didn't necessarily know about or hear about. Mostly probably because religion wasn't necessarily the most prominent thing in your field. But you learn about that there are communities of Kalashtar that follow something called the Path of Light. Essentially as a force to repel evil dreaming spirits. And it's almost kind of what Ipa has discovered sort of on her own as well, this sort of meditative, calm aspect of being a Kalashtar. So you'd probably be pushed a little bit into those communities to try and learn a little bit more. And then Cornelius joins a cult, and he's never heard from again.
Incredible.
Until he shows up in 100 sessions, and he's bald and wearing a robe and talking all weird like a tranquil.
And he is a multi-classed monk, because why not? Or cleric, that would be fun. And I will say, over the course of the time that he continually spends at the Biblioteca del Prisma, he continues to ask Ipa on lunch and dinner dates, but probably little too self-conscious to ever try to make a move.
Oh, but of course, every once in a while you hear a squinch, "Hey!" and it makes you twitch a little bit, and you look around, but nowhere to be found. Doc, of course, is the most perfect familiar you've ever met, to a startling degree. But
I'm gonna start. He'll probably start being like, "Okay, I'm gonna teach you how to do other things. Have you ever heard of a gun?" It's gonna teach Doc how to shoot and do several things, because it's just like, you seem a lot less unstable than Squinch. If I hand you a gun, you're probably not gonna shoot the first person that pisses you off. So he starts teaching him just things about the material world, what it's like to be out there, things that he might not know, being a familiar and being from another plane. So
I know the answer to this, but it's sort of a what if thing. In exploring these Kalashtar religious communities, the Path of Light is sort of divided into two denominations. One of them is called the Lightbringers, and the other one is called the Shadow Watchers. You can kind of probably guess what their things are, but it's sort of the two sides of what they believe. They sort of, believe in the good dreaming spirits, the good side of being a Kalashtar, not the dreaming dark and the evil spirits. But it's sort of the two paths of going about it. The Lightbringers are all about positivity, spreading hope, goodwill, selflessness, and being this force of light and non-violence. The Shadow Watchers are basically the opposite. Evil things poison the world. They need to be sought out and destroyed with, just get them, destroy them with it as much, essentially just violence, as a warrior. And sort of the two camps. What would Cornelius be, I wonder?
it's absolutely a Shadow Watcher.
I believe it.
Because it's one of those things where he's like, okay, he could be a rational guy. He's like, peace and love and all that, that's got its place and everything, but that's not my talent. I've got guns, I've got knives, I can turn people's brains inside out with my head. I can fly around in the middle of the night, and I can do terrible, terrible things to other creatures, other people, and that's not. I'm not good at the peace thing, you know.
If he
But
were...
I can put a stop to evil things. I can use these talents that have come to me from whatever they came from initially, and I can use them to put a stop to the other evil things in the world. That's what I'm good at. I shoot things. I kill people. I'm not a good person, but I can do good things with the evil things I am capable of.
And if he was invited to join this kind of like sect, would he? Or would he kind of stick around in Sharn and pessimist? Yeah, true. Or would
He wouldn't. It'd be one of those things where he wouldn't officially join. He's kind of like he'd essentially be like a mercenary. He's like, you know what? You guys got a good thing going on. I'm not the religious type. Don't try to get me involved. But I can follow what you do. So if you have a need, you need an extra hand, you need an extra gun, I'm your guy. I don't mind putting a few evil things back in the dirt, sending them back where they came from.
Hell yeah.
I'll help. But no robes, no rituals, none of that. I'm good. I'm not. I don't do religion. Sorry.
Keep me on the payroll, but I'm not gonna come to the meetings.
That's the spirit. That's the spirit right there.
So Austin, any final thoughts on Cornelius's future? What might be in store for him?
I think the longer time goes on, and the more unanswered questions he has about himself, he will devote it more and more of his time and effort into those questions. Because the one thing that keeps sticking in his mind are the dreams that he had of a different place and a different time, that the little snippets of it. And I think the question that always burns in his mind is, who was I and where did I come from? And he will, if he doesn't find, the longer it takes to find his answer, the more almost obsessed he will become with finding the answer, to a point where maybe one day he'll close that office and stop renting it, and he will go wherever he has to for however long he has to find the answer. He may still be in Sharn, or he may disappear and nobody may ever see him again. But one day, when he doesn't get his answer after a sufficient enough time, he will give up everything and go looking for it.
Now I'm seeing Cornelius as like this crazed planeswalker. Like, just searching for the answers around all the multiverse. In his trench coat.
The longer it
cigarettes.
takes, the more likely that becomes, because
Ooh,
the longer a question is left unanswered in his mind, the more he obsesses over it.
Ooh, man. So yes, welcome, Jeremy, for hanging out. We are just doing some unwinding, talking about post-campaign lives of our characters, and talking about the close of the investigation, and we're just chill. We're in a little narrative, just chatting. So with that, let's bump up back up to the upper city a little bit. Let's do Oleg. Because this is the one that I had already kind of brainstormed, like, trying to think of, like, okay, I'll ask. I kind of want to ask about this, want to know this. But with Oleg, I was like, because even though, like, I guess we'll say it this way: the case is closed. I guess the first thing would be, like, what does Oleg want to... What's the ideal situation for Oleg with the daelkyr stuff and after? But then also you can still ask a question about the investigation and just kind of talk about Oleg's future.
I don't think Oleg cares about the investigation at all at this point. Like, I think
she's arrested. Great.
Yeah, truly, I don't even think that he cared at all at this point. Once he figured out that the, like, daelkyr were coming, he was just like, whatever, this is a sideshow. He doesn't care anymore. So truly, like, no questions about the investigation on Oleg's part.
Okay. So what's Oleg's ideal situation when it comes to the daelkyr?
ideal situation for the daelkyr.
Like they just come and be like, we were just joshing, man. Let's go get a beer.
I I think his ideal situation, like really what he wants at this point, he's scared of them a little bit, but he still wants them to be able to find a little home and have their own place without trying to take over everything. He's very naive about this situation still. And so I think he like truly just wants them to be happy without wanting to kill people. But if it ends up like that he has to kill all of them, I don't think he's going to be upset about it. Yeah. So I think ideally he's going to be like, can we all just be friends? Can we just be friends, bro? We've been friends this whole time.
This whole time it's been fine, man.
Yeah, it's just been fine.
Will he continue to experiment with daelkyr like stuff when he gets a chance?
I think that if they're still friends, yes. If they're not still friends, then no. I think at this point he's slowly started to unravel like everything from himself to be not daelkyr. And I think like in the short term, even before we deal with the daelkyr, I think he's going to ask Varian to help like get rid of the daelkyr stuff that's inside of him, or maybe like disable it for a time. He doesn't know how it works. Maybe like an off switch, on switch kind of thing. I don't know. I think he's just going to try to figure out a way that maybe, I think maybe he's going to try to figure out a way that it can all work out. But I don't know. That's what he's going to be obsessing with, probably very unsuccessfully, and just end up fighting them anyway.
That's fair.
That's really like our one shots discussion, right? Like what's going to happen during the one shot. Yes, Alan.
Oh, this thumbs up. That sort of leaves me with two. I have so many follow-ups and what ifs.
Okay.
So with the close of the investigation, regardless of even how much Oleg cared about it, the Kundarak name is going down in all the papers and in all the gossip as being one of the heroes, the investigators that caught this criminal. If Oleg's superiors in the Kundarak family offered him sort of a seat at the table, as it were, metaphorically, would Oleg accept it, or would he continue?
He wants to be part of the Aurum eventually. I think he eventually wants to have access to all the technology that's in that place. I think he really, after he saw that museum, basically like the showing off of all that technology, he was like,
oh yeah,
if I just join, I could just like mess around with this stuff. That sounds dope. And after like kept on seeing like notes of like this person will be passing on those gears, I think he really wants to see what happens if we get all those gears and what we can do with it. So I think he very much wants to get all that stuff. So he wants to be part of the Aurum so he can get more technology.
Oh, that will easily be done. You'll get like an honorary membership, like an honorary doctorate. I guess the last follow-up I had was I feel as though Varian may have alluded to it, but if not, Oleg would probably still know about it to some capacity. You know that Varian's graduating at the end of the semester, and that he will potentially be moving on to bigger things outside of Sharn. How will Oleg feel about Varian going out into the big old world?
Oh, wrecked. He's definitely going to be that like parent who's just like sobbing, even though he's not even like, you're like, he's not even your kid, bro. Like that neighbor who's like overly attached whenever you leave.
I imagine us at Varian's graduation, like we're sitting next to his parents and like his uncle and stuff, and they're like being very somber and quiet, and we're like, wow, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, we're all
yeah.
We're those parents that were at graduation and like in the graduation they're like, all right, everyone,
please do not
please
yell and
wait,
scream.
please leave your silent, please be silent until the end, and like all of us are like, wow, let's go, Varian.
Yeah. Definitely Oleg finds a party gun, like he creates a party gun.
Yeah, I was thinking just a confetti cannon.
Confetti cannon.
Everybody winces and gets down like the house killer returns.
Yeah, Varian's just like fucking mortified.
Oh my god.
For sure that happens at his graduation.
Lovingly mortified.
Mortified. Okay. Well, Travis, are there any other thoughts about Oleg's future? And
for sure, even if he's like getting into the Aurum, I think he definitely is like definitely that person in the group who's constantly like texting, keeping in contact with people. I think he's definitely like, even if he doesn't, he like acts that he doesn't love every person. He's just constantly like, hey, how's it coming? He like stop by. He like and drives by Varian's new place, even though it's like in a whole completely new area, like a completely new continent. He'll like stop by and just be like, hey, how you doing? How's it coming? I didn't announce myself, but I'm here. And I definitely think that a lot of his time there for the first month or so is definitely going to be trying to figure out if he can reverse Romulus back into Spike. Yeah, and definitely trying to convince Romulus that like it's cool that he's alive and all, but like, you know, I got a friend who had that body. It's real awkward that you're possessing it. And he still like shows up every day, and sometimes he'll just like walk up to Romulus and be talking to him like he's Spike, and like completely just like, hey Spike, you want to go read this book? Or like, hey Spike, there's a library right around the corner, like we could try this other book that I've heard about. Or like,
Oleg, your old man is showing. That's some transphobic stuff, Oleg.
well, yeah, I think it's more like, you know, your friend got killed and it's now taken over by somebody else. I don't know. It feels,
Denial.
it feels more like that.
Yeah,
I
this
don't
feels
know.
desperate more than bigoted.
Yeah, just like
I don't think.
It's just honestly,
Yeah.
it's just more sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like after a month, he finally is just like, "Hey Romulus, it's nice to see you," and is still like very sad. Tries to become friends with Romulus, but like is also really sad that his friend got taken over.
Man,
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good segue into getting Xavier to talk a little bit about. So, for people who missed it, spoiler alert: Spike.
know.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler
Died.
alert! We skip to this thumbnail. I'm just kidding.
Spike
Yeah.
died. However, in the revival, Spike's patron / the sentient being that was in his gun when it got fused into his arm, took over. And so now, even though it is a new person, Xavier, I can let you take it away. It's just, however, what's Romulus's life like? Because he effectively has all the same experiences that Spike has had, so he was kind of just there with it. So it's nothing necessarily new, but you know, just in control.
I think at first Romulus he tries to go along with things, you know, tries to keep the status quo, but quickly realizes that it's just not going to work. So he meets up with Merrick's and Gurm, see what they have to say about things. He ends things with Kara because it was never going to work. He'll stick around to help with the whole daelkyr thing, but you know, after he finds out, you know, does he get more of his memory back, or is he still kind of just like confused on his past?
He'll definitely get some memory back, especially start searching for Gurm. But I'm going to toilet cat super fast before I answer that question.
Okay.
Can't hold it any longer. So if anyone else needs to run away, I'm sorry, Xavier, I have to interrupt you.
You're fine.
had no idea everyone was gonna leave. That would have changed the scene. Oh, thank God people are back. What's up, Jeremy? Hey, buddy.
Wait,
I didn't
what
realize
happened?
everyone was leaving, and I would have
Oh.
changed otherwise.
Oh, sorry. I just went to go get some water.
No, it's fine. So
I was
yes.
waiting for Logan to break. I also.
Oh, damn it! I don't know. I just had to go too bad. I had to run. So, Xavier, to answer your question a little bit, it takes a little while for Romulus's memories to come back through, join up with Spike's a little bit. But you you have a very similar memory of going to the Warforged group counseling, sponsored by the King's Citadel and House Cannith in Andeth Tower. It was a different leader at the time, but it was the same place, the same group. The difference is that the leader at the time, similar to the one that you met, took people's information, etc., but then what happened to Romulus was that he was outsourced. They told him, "Oh, we have a private therapist for you to go see, specialized in this kind of thing," and sent him to meet someone else in the city. And then what Romulus remembers is, of course, just a horrifying, dizzying thing of being attacked somewhere in the lower city, being ambushed, captured by a goblin crafter mechanic who experimented, tore him apart, and essentially turned him into a weapon. And apparently was not the first. As in, this workshop of horrors was full of weapons and armor built out of the flesh of Warforged.
Okay, all right. So he went to a serial killer. That's great. That's
He went to unknowingly, and apparently the guy who was leading the workshop that Spike went to was doing the same thing. It was some kind of deal that was struck with that group.
Oh, so that.
And that's why Merrick's to Cannith, because he knows who Gurm was. He used to work for him, and has some ill feelings about what he's doing. That's why he knew about the gun, because he knew that was Gurm's work.
Yeah, so Gurm is the serial. Okay, so Gurm has been killing people, and Spike's. Okay, got it. And Spike's counselor did want to kill him. Spike's counselor did want him dead. Don't trust therapists.
Sure.
Why would someone want to know your
no.
secrets?
Nobody should get therapy ever. They're all plotting against you.
On that note,
Why do you want to know
on
my
official note,
deepest,
on
darkest secrets?
On an official note, you should go to therapy if you need it. Don't mind. Please go to therapy. It's good for you.
I'm gonna lose my job.
Oh yeah, Alan's in there.
Men will literally become serial killers before they'll go to therapy.
Alan.
If you become Alan's client, he will sell you for parts.
Oh, God. We're
You
kidding,
harvest
we're
your
kidding.
organs.
Go to therapy,
Uh-huh.
please.
For legal reasons, we're kidding.
We are kidding.
Or go to therapy. Okay, cool. Wow.
So yes, in searching and trying to get in touch with Gurm, and also as Romulus's memories unlock, eventually that is revealed in a shocking revelation.
Okay. Well, I was going to say that after trying to awkwardly, fit into society, he was going to decide that it wasn't going to really work. He was going to go on a little vacation. He was going to leave Sharn for a little bit. But finding out that there's a serial killer on the loose, the city has a way of pulling you back in. So he's going to do everything in his power to put it into Gurm. And probably ask for some help.
I smell a one-shot in the future.
Yeah.
Ooh.
All right.
Don't you know? Hand sanitizer kills 99.9% of germs.
I don't know. I don't think he'll ask.
He's like, who needs a reporter on your fucking case? I don't know what this.
Ooh.
Checkmate. I'm a freelancer now. I don't have a job.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's his life. He's saying goodbye to some people, closing up some loose ends, and he's going to kill this
motherfucker.
Yeah, weirdo.
Awesome.
And then maybe he's gonna take a vacation and leave the city for a little bit.
Maybe
Everyone's
that's what
a
we'll
big
do.
place.
We won't do a session of like the one shot where Romulus kills Gurm. It's the one shot after Romulus killed Gurm, and it's the beach episode where Romulus and friends go to the beach.
Yes.
There you go.
I want to go to Cancun. Everyone, Cancun.
Okay. Go to the Talenta Plains and ride the dinosaurs.
Yes. When are we gonna ride the dinosaurs?
I love it.
So, question about the
Catch
case.
about the case.
Just one question, right?
Just one.
question. All
There'll be
right.
more in the future, but one for now.
I think the question he have. I'm trying to see, because to him it's just like, we got the bad guy. We're good. Like, they die. I think. One of the
Something
biggest
is
things.
cracking Alan up.
He just asked me to send him. He asked me to send him the artist stuff because he didn't know which one we ended up picking, and he was gonna choose the full body. He was gonna pay the most expensive version of it, and he didn't actually know which artist it was.
Classic. All right, Xavier, continue.
Sorry.
Yeah. I don't think he's like super concerned about the case at this point anymore. He's kind of just putting it behind him. But one thing that he's interested in is how far was this going to go? Was this going to just be like every Dragon Mark member in all of Sharn, or was this going to like? Because like, what was the true plan here? Were they gonna just gather every Dragon Mark person up here and eventually just?
What was the end game?
Yeah, because it just kind of seemed like it was just gonna keep going and going.
Sort of. So the not necessarily the end game, but sort of the goal at first was to show the world, the population of the continent, sort of the frailty of the Dragon Marked houses. Like, they're not as big and amazing as they seem, or as powerful as they seem. Potentially opening the door to enough societal weakness to essentially almost dismantle them and almost take their place. As in, like, rather than having all these houses run all these different things, like, take it from the hands of the houses. And Ithno's first idea was to become the Sharn, like, leader. Not a council. Her. But then almost becoming an additional member of the council that would oversee the house stuff in Sharn, and then throughout the continent. But even though the goal is more like worldwide and political, the real goal was to just dismantle the houses because of their role in the war and death of her husband at the time.
Got you. Yeah, whenever you start planning for like world domination, you gotta just scale it back. Okay, it gets too sloppy.
It got sloppy.
There can't be a world ruler. Like, come on, be realistic.
Sloppy.
Sloppy.
Disgusting.
And definitely when her husband sort of came back in the picture, it definitely shook it up a little bit. He was like, well, I can't just rule the world. Like, what is he gonna do? I mean, where's he gonna be? Is he just gonna sit in the green room off to the side? Like, gotta be there too. But yeah, it was essentially just dismantle the houses, and maybe take the place, because she was charismatic, so she almost wanted to do that, just didn't have the route quite yet. So yeah. Any final thoughts on the story of Romulus and Spike?
So, the way that the last session ended, there was like Spike left him with just like a take care of them. Does he ever hear that voice again?
I like to think so. Just every once in a while, as like bumpers in bowling, just like a little like a little intuition here and there, a little comment. Nothing too overt.
I think I was joking around with it. I think this was like after the stream about I was like, what would Romulus be as? And I was like, you know, it'd be cool to have him be like an Echo Knight, but his Echo is Spike. And at first I said it as a joke, but the longer I thought about it, the more I was like, that's so fucking cool. So like I think that's what I'm gonna do.
That's it. Yeah. Because the option that was initially I thought about was Romulus is still a Hexblade Warlock, but Spike is now Romulus's patron, and just switch places. But
I was still he's gonna still have his Hexblade. It's like a multi-class Hexblade, but Echo Knight. That way he can still like use whatever weapons that he wants and everything like that. So.
But yeah, he said the Spike is
Yeah,
and I think Travis made some kind of comment which like, oh yeah, and Oleg will cry every single time he summons the Echo.
I think that doesn't help his denial at all.
Every time you summon the Echo, it's a different persona of Spike's.
Pirate Spike, Cowboy Spike.
This is slightly fucked up, actually, because it's basically just like your friend becoming a necromancer and then rezzing your other friend every single time to fight. That's literally what you're doing. You're just reminding Oleg of his best friend.
Not everything is about you, actually.
I'm not doing anything, okay? Logan said that he's still there. So, and honestly, if you think about it, Oleg put Romulus and Spike together. So really, this is your fault.
Okay, Xavier, you said that, and Jeremy said that. And now I'm just imagining Oleg going at Romulus with like pliers and a hammer, like, get Spike out of there, and try to like rip open.
I'll kill you.
Holy shit.
Who knows? Maybe after the one shot, he'll actually accept him.
You all
Or try to
survived the
kill him. We'll
daelkyr
never know.
thing, and you're all like, woo! And then Oleg.
It's like, well, now that's over.
Thank
Just
God.
immediately kills me.
Oh my god. Okay, anything else, Xavier? Any final thoughts of Romulus and Spike?
That's all for right now.
Do you and Kara stay friends, or do you just like cut off entirely?
I think they stay friends. Yeah, they don't have to be like enemies or anything like that. But I think it's just more of like it was just awkward, you know? Because
Definitely.
yeah,
I mean, he's not that guy.
exactly. He's not that guy. And like, I can imagine scenes where they're like, "Ooh, don't you want to like act as a funny character in this moment?" And Romulus is like, "I don't do that.
That's not me,
that
man."
was the other guy. That was."
Oh god. Oof. Maybe Romulus will
Oleg
be
with
the
a
nice
tear
girl.
running down his face. Do the pirate voice.
Yeah, I'm imagining for like Christmas or something, Oleg gives Romulus a gift and he's like, can't wait for you to open it. Romulus opens it's a cowboy hat and he's like, Oleg, you gave me this for my birthday. You gotta stop giving me these. I don't want them. I'm not gonna wear it.
But it's genuine leather.
It's genuine.
He's like, "Are you sure he even said that? I don't even."
Gives him cowboy
Would you-
boots. The boots stay on. You said.
Would you call this gift good, bad, or ugly?
Boo. I love it. Now let's do yeah, so Jacob spoke up a little bit with Donovan being a freelancer, so we'll jump to Donovan a little bit. Yeah, so Jacob, you'll get the question about the investigation, what your future looks like. But I'm going to give you a freebie about the investigation because in asking E39 anything related to the Sharn Inquisitive, she did have an with the owner and all that stuff, but the one who actually got you fired was in the Boromar clan. So even though E39 is behind bars and that portion of your record is clear, so to speak, that's not necessarily the end of it. So effectively, you're still fired by the end of it all, simply for the fact that you joined the Sharn Inquisitive under the guise and of just being an intern, but you were working with the Boromar clan. But I'll leave it up to you what you do after the investigation closes and you are sort of untethered for the time.
I'll say what I do for a second. But my question is, what happened to Gav? Where did he go? Did he end up in a ditch somewhere and they just kind of faked it that he ran away?
Basically, what ended up happening, and Ithranel actually has the answers to this. She had sent people to go kill them both. However, Sim opened the door and took the first killing blow. Gav managed to stop the attacker, understanding effectively what would happen, and knowing that Ithranel essentially had his number, knew where they were. He just had to hit it and quit it and get out. So he was not responsible, but he knew that his time in Sharn was definitely cut short. And who knows, maybe he was helping you guys a little bit on the way, just in disguise.
Was he?
Maybe. Like a little Santa Claus just popping in.
Oh, well. Interesting. But as far as what I will do is, I think I'm going to split my time doing two different things. I'm going to essentially do, actually I had three things. I'm going to do what I was doing in the Sharn Inquisitive, like trying to write to help people and expose corruption. I'm going to continue to do so, but I'm just going to cut out the middleman. And even if it doesn't make me any money, I'm going to keep reporting on things that are happening that shouldn't be happening, looking out for the little guy,
Nice.
as I've been doing. And I will use whatever means I have to keep doing that. I mean, even if I don't have a printing press in my home doing it that way, I'm going to make sure that it gets out. And now that I have an in with the lanterns, I'm gonna be like, hey, Yusud, I did you a real big favor helping you solve this. So
Help me out.
now that you're a bigwig, give me some resources, and I'll make sure that I clean the shit out of your house. So I essentially will offer my service, like make sure that her organization stays free of corruption, and all I ask is that she gives me a little bit of help to get the word out with other things. And then second, I like to stay busy, so I think that I would offer if Cornelius wanted to. Austin's not here, so I guess this is.
I am.
Austin, this
Oh,
you're
okay,
good.
there he is.
I
have
would.
a video for other things.
I would offer if he wanted a partner in his investigative services. I would love to help him out, and if he wanted to move out of his, if he wanted to use an office that was not his apartment, if he wanted to use my place, since this is most of the time it's empty, he could move to his office to a slightly nicer neighborhood, and we could work together to make Sharn a better place.
Cornelius would be down for that. Because I imagine his search for answers for himself will take him a long time. So before he reaches the point where he just kind of goes off to figure it out and leaves Sharn behind, he'd probably want to do that.
Man, and just in order to work with everybody else, I would still probably keep in contact with Rickon now that I know who he is and what he's about.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for his advice and just kind of do what I can to make the city a better place. Leave it cleaner than I found it.
And he would definitely mentor all along the way and fund and give you jobs where he hears them and all sorts of stuff.
And I mean, and just his main thing is he wants to make sure he can still support. He doesn't want his daughter to have to pay for school. And I live in a nice neighborhood, and I don't want that to be in jeopardy just because the corruption of the city. So I'm going to do what I can to make sure that she doesn't have to worry about that. And then, yes, I have another thing, but you're pondering something.
I was just thinking that she's probably a lot like her dad, and would even, like, without even telling you, like, get a little side job on campus to help pay for stuff. Even if you say, like, no, you don't need to, she'd be like,
and the thing is, I wouldn't say that. I would be like, that's what I would do. And I don't stop her.
Yeah.
The school paper?
Yeah, she works for the school newspaper and journalism club. And you say, don't do it. It's a dying art. It's a dying business.
No. I'd say, follow your heart. Do what's important to you.
Just don't major in English. It's useless.
She's going to be a weather person.
I saw that little clap, Travis.
It's true.
And then,
It is
lastly, I would, after my conversation with Keelan, I would try to figure out who actually murdered my wife.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And of course, you would get pointed in the direction of the desk. But of course, it would.
Can I trade my question? Can I ask that question?
That's
more important to me.
That's not an investigation question. That can be an after dark question.
All right. But yeah, that's what I would do, and I think as far as like the Sharn Inquisitive goes, if I would go out of my way to make sure that I would make sure to leak, if it doesn't already get leaked, I would make sure to go out of my way to leak the fact that that the owner of it was working with E39. I would make sure that is like very public knowledge. And or even better. No, I won't even like blackmail them. I'll just release that into the ether.
Just throw it out there. Let the world do what it will.
And because I think that I can do better work when I don't have to answer to anyone.
And so this is, I guess, my follow-up what if question. If the Sharn Inquisitive collapsed and the city needed a new journalism outlet, what would Donovan call his newspaper?
I had an answer for this a long time ago. Because I was thinking about if I wrote a self-help article that people wrote to me to ask for advice, what it would be called.
Yeah, a little column.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't.
I have to think about that.
The Damon Digest.
That's a good one. We'll go with that.
That's pretty good.
See, my English degree wasn't useless.
There we
in your
go.
face, Travis.
Damon Digest,
Yeah.
that's money in the bank.
Yeah, and I would probably start that even if they didn't collapse, and just be like, that would be what I would call
The
it, like
rival
out on the
paper.
streets. Yeah, and
The
I just
Sharn
like be in
Chicago
the. I'd be in I just be in like the lantern office, like using their printer. Like it's like Houston comes in, it's just like, you gotta stop taking all our paper, and I'm like, hey, you said I could be here.
New bot printer.
Printer bot. Oh, and that's it. When I go to clean out my desk, like after the case is done, I'll go buy creamer and I'll just like look around, I'll pick him up and just leave
Run away with him under your arm.
And he's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I steal him, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, it's like seeing the guy walk out and just take the printer. It's just like, I don't know if he's supposed to do that, but I'm not gonna do
Oh
it.
yeah, no, I don't care.
I'm not gonna stop
I don't
him.
care.
Dude, if a man's ballsy enough to go into there and just straight up steal a machine, you're not gonna stop him. What are you?
I just helped save the city, so I'm just taking it, and they can deal with it. They can take the L.
I mean, fair. They got money.
For now, until the article comes out that I write about them working with Ithranil.
That's fair.
And the last line of the article is, "Suck it."
Fucking idiots. Oh man.
Suck it.
All right. Anything else, Jacob?
No, that's it.
That was it. Love it. Let's see. We started with Alan, so I guess. Do we want Alan to go first and last, or do we want Carson to go last?
Let's go. Carson then Alan.
Carson then Alan. Okay. So
I'm
Carson.
gonna say why don't I go last?
Oh,
I'd prefer to go last. If that's
Carson
all right.
first to go last. Sure. So Alan,
Yeah.
this
what
actually requires a little bit of a setup because for everyone else, Alan doesn't know what happened with Wendelin. He's uncertain. So this requires a little bit of a setup. So, if you recall way back when, I think around session 14 or so, when it was Wendelin's last session, Wendelin had been convinced by Rays of the House Killers' values, the views of their inevitable destruction of the city, and that they were tainted, and that the city, they were ruining the city, and they caused the war, and yada, all this stuff. And that it almost became, for Wendelin, like this, like, it almost aligned with the Order of the Alley. And probably very quickly, Wendelin may have understood that this was going not as intended, because that's sort of the way of Ithranil, was to hook you with something and then slowly taint it and turn it into something else, but it moves too quickly for you to do too much about, and she's too powerful for you to do too much about. And so
it was like some of the foundations of, you know, what they were into kind of aligned together, but like I think it was part of like Wendelin was kind of hoping there'd be something better on the other side of the curtain, and like kind of hoping she and her order could help influence this towards
Yes.
a different like trajectory.
And this is kind of a little nugget for Xavier and Austin a little bit. Something that sort of happened and that Wendelin quickly learned is that the vigilante, the sort of a member of the Order of the Alley that has sort of gone off to do sort of vigilante, isolated, alone work, Virtue, also, you know, a friend, had also been contacted by Ithranil and was already helping Ithranil a little bit here and there with just some like espionage things. But then it was sort of like a just seal on the letter as they got Wendelin involved, and sort of using both of you very quickly to then quickly poison the rest of the Order Alley into helping. And once that happened, it was almost a hive mind thing. No one wanted to speak out that much. Everyone was working together. It was for the betterment of the city. She was trying to make it all better and help things and rise to the top, just in an unconventional way. And so even though Wendelin was very quickly not on board, there wasn't a whole lot to do about it, because it would have just been Wendelin against everyone at that point.
Can Can I ask a question
Yes,
that's
maybe.
related to Wendelin?
Maybe.
Was Wendelin like waiting on somebody to reach out to be like, "We have faith in you. This is not right, and you know it's not right." I want to know how much. I'm guessing what I'm asking is, did me reaching out, did that make a difference?
It made a difference, but it wasn't necessarily like Wendelin was waiting. It was that, and this is answering a question that has yet to be asked about Ithranel's ledgers.
Oh, I wanted to ask about that. But I
Even
forgot.
though Ithranel brought Wendelin in as like her right-hand bodyguard, it was because Ithranel didn't trust Wendelin and knew
No, yeah, you mentioned that
Wendelin-
last week.
Yeah, Wendelin
Yeah, you
would
just-
bolt or do something and at the first chance. So it's also that Wendelin never got the chance to get away to do something without Ithranel getting suspicious. But the reaching out sort of gave Wendelin the pick me up.
Was Wendelin already at the point where she realized something was wrong before Cornelius told her about the attempt on Varian's life, or was that the turning point?
That was about the turning point. So it was sort of like Wendelin had doubts, and then it was like, oh, she tried killing my friend? No. That was not the deal. That was not the plan, kind of thing. But of course, Wendelin has a heart of gold, and eventually
The head of rock.
change sides. A head of rock. And so, of course, things unfolded as they did. Because Ithranel didn't trust Wendelin, she posed Wendelin away from the Aurora Gallery on the opposite side of the street, so she couldn't get involved into things. But, of course, and that's where the investigation takes the longest, is essentially saying, hey, all of these people helped Ithranel do these things, but they're not at fault. And so that's where a lot of the questioning, a lot of the closing of the case will take the longest. But inevitably, Wendelin avoids getting questioned at all because she's an Order of the Alley member and can do that, or she can step up and, speak out. But also, I guess from Wendelin's perspective, the Order of the Alley kind of showed their asses with this.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they thought they were doing the right thing, they just were not what they needed to be. And so it's sort of like, what does Wendelin do? Does she speak out? Does she stay quiet? What is Wendelin's relationship to the Order of the Alley after this, all of this goes down? And what does Wendelin do in the future because of that with these investigators and the city itself? Lots of things.
Oh, she gets fired.
Wait, fired from the Order of the Alley? Or just...
Yeah.
How do you get fired from a vigilante group?
Carefully, I imagine.
Yeah, right.
Because I mean, she kind of became the catalyst to, lull the Order of the Alley into this situation and to be on the wrong side of it. Which, it's a mistake, but it's a very tragic mistake. And, not only did she do something that, she ended up realizing was wrong, but also the Order of the Alley now has a reputation. Like, people know about them now, where before, like, they tried so hard to just kind of like stay like literally in the shadows and just kind of be a background presence.
Mm-hmm.
And now, at the very least, there is a file. They're known about by other people, by other organizations, and it's kind of gonna force them into other future things that like they're not comfortable with or they're not used to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, this past week I was kind of thinking about that a lot because I think, there's got to be a lot of almost kind of like a schism, I feel like, of different people, and then within the order, trying to figure out what's the best route to go now for the order. And I think for Wendelin, it's also kind of like she's willing to like kind of be the soldier to fall on a sword kind of deal. So I think it would be easier just to kind of put a lot of the blame on Wendelin and then just kind of outcast her from the order so that the organization itself like stays together. It still is cohesive in the long run. Otherwise it's not going to be a thing anymore.
It's almost worse.
It's supposed to be people helping from the back, and once you put a spotlight on that, it's just not going to be what it is anymore. So
would Wendelin stay in Sharn and sort of work as like a private mercenary or investigator, or
I think
Do we have a job for you?
yeah, does Wendelin just get a
You
job
want
at
to be
the Food Lion?
You want to be the first news lady? You want to run around and deliver my newspaper illegally?
I imagine Wendelin running at like lightning speeds and shoving flyers into people's hands as she runs by and sticking them to walls.
there's a problem. Like,
Sharn
they
Nights,
become
this just in, the
mulch.
Sharn Nights of a bunch of bitches.
She has to like actually slow down, or else the papers become mulch.
Shredding. The
At certain
ink is still a little
velocities.
wet, so it smears as you run. Yeah, does she stay in Sharn? What does she do? Does she just get a part-time job, or?
I think she'll stay in Sharn. The Order of the Alley, I feel like it's gonna probably take some time for them to just kind of stop operations and just kind of
Yeah.
pretend like they died, and just kind of like recuperate. I think for Wendelin, I mean, her very core is about Sharn. Like, her whole life is about Sharn. It's been in Sharn. She was molded by the Sharn.
Yeah.
So there's not really anywhere else for her to go. She doesn't want to go anywhere, and she needs to stay. I don't think she'll stay like where she was living before. She might just kind of like roam and wander around, which wouldn't be too big of a deal for her. It's more just
She can crash on my couch.
yeah, she might.
Well,
yeah.
I also imagine
We just have a big sleepover.
and this is kind of reflecting on Wendelin's history a little bit. In the wake of this event, the Sharn Watch would, of course, be put in the spotlight, put in the hot seat for a little bit. Simply, they just suck in general, but also like Ithranil had ties to the Sharn Watch too. But also, even more than that, Ithranil had ties to the Boromar clan,
I was going to ask a question about
which
that.
throws them into the hot seat even more and into the spotlight. And on top of, their like sort of matriarch stepping down from the Sharn Council for Ithranil, and then now Ithranil's gone, so she has to step back up. But the family was still in the mindset of like, we're focusing on our war with the Dask. We're gonna do this. This is our turf. So to Wendelin also, like, the Boromar clan is also a bit uneasy. So it could be a chance to like learn
Yeah,
stuff,
and I
get
think-
involved, something.
I think at the very least, Wendelin has learned a bit more through a connection to the Boromar clan, and I feel like for her that's gonna be one of her like driving motivations for the future, is finding ways to just kind of like whittle down at least the Boromar clan. She was kind of kept away at 2 arms length by Ithranil, but she knows a little bit more about or she can with the help of some detective friends deduce what's going on, different operations and stuff, given like what she knows or vaguely knows. And
That's what I was
kinda-
gonna
go
ask. Wendelin and Donovan never talked about their mutual dislike of the Boromar clan, but if that ever came up after the end of this, then he would definitely be very, very open to helping you take them down, or at least knock them down a couple pegs.
A Donovan and Wendelin buddy cop one shot.
And honestly, I feel like out of everybody, either Cornelius or Donovan would probably pick up that like Wendelin is still in town doing stuff. Because the thing about the Order of the Alley and how it worked was, yeah, most of the time it's just one person kind of operating independently. But whenever someone needs any assistance or help with anything, the whole network helps out. And so Wendelin doesn't have a network anymore. So she's going to try and do vigilante stuff like before, but she's not going to have that network to rely and fall back on. So eventually she's going to make mistakes that, you know, pretty inquisitive people are going to notice.
Cornelius is walking around, looks down here and says, someone fucking sharded in this alley and cleaned it up. Wendelin's been here.
Gwendolyn's been here.
It was a big old net. Some doggy bags.
You ate the hot dog again.
That canned chili.
And I was actually wondering, since now the Bormar clan is not in, it's at a lesser position of power right now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, you know, the Sharn Watch and King's Citadel especially could have an interest in trying to take them down. So I don't know.
Same
if maybe...
also with the Dask, their rival
Mhm.
criminal organization.
So I don't know if maybe there's like, you know, some incentive for Killian to like even like find Wendelin and
A one shot with just Alan
Just
playing.
me and Amir. But for them to like,
It's great to meet
at
you,
least
Wendelin.
try and-
It's great to meet you, Killian.
Wow, you sound just like me.
Wow, crazy.
I feel like I've known you all my life.
But yeah, I feel like there'd be some possible
Crossover.
cross section
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
I like that. Dang. I'm sure Spike would be thrilled to know that Wendelin still has a heart of gold after all this.
I'd say Spike was like pushing very hard for people to, mainly for Oleg to not kill her.
Yeah, everyone else, like, they were like, well, I don't know about Wendelin. Spike was like, come on, guys. And they're like, okay, fine. But Oleg was not about it.
Does,
Part of the team.
would Wendelin know about what happened to Spike?
Oh, yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably.
Aw. Maybe they can be
I
roommates.
think at some point she'd probably just kind of like keep tabs on Romulus.
Who's this guy?
Kind of like yeah.
Nice. I like that.
And of course, we can't forget about Love Withers. I'm sure you guys would have some kind of like Romeo and Juliet style romance while she's still a member of the Order of the Alley and you like quit or get fired. You still meet up on occasion.
Yeah, trying to be super sneaky, but Love is still like stumbling and falling, like
Yeah, it's so
headbutting into
clumsy.
the fire escapes.
Yeah, definitely. But then you still smooch. Anything else, Alan, about Wendelin's future?
Oh yeah, the Roans
The
from the Orem.
Yeah,
Uh,
the family that you
Yes,
got
the
that you
gnome
jumped
yeah,
into.
family.
do you
the-
still like keep in touch with them? Is
Yeah,
the
you can
Orem
send
still
them
a thing?
because they were like visiting for that stuff, so they're like back home. But like you could write them letters and catch up
Okay,
with them when
cool,
they
cool,
visit.
yeah,
Hook up with
I
their
just-
daughter.
yeah. I also.
Because
Mm,
you
I
remember
guess
that?
I don't know. I guess I don't know. Like, is the Orm still? Like, is their reputation tarnished at all for like accepting Ithranel? Can I ask that? Have I run out of questions?
I think so, because that would kind of apply a little bit for everyone. It'd be tarnished, but also with, you know, the right people in the right places and the right conveyance of information, they can almost be painted as the victims of it because, I mean, they didn't know. They were kind of just like everyone else and got swayed by those honeyed words and everything else. So, I mean, there's still a lot of people, and that's sort of the... this is sort of a tangent, but I kind of mentioned in my like little recap thing, is that like the damage was still done. There were still a couple people that died that night, like dragon marked house people, and it sort of reinforces this idea of like, you know, the Arum, they ended up they've like funded her almost. They helped her throughout this. You know, if they weren't, you know, if they didn't have all that money, they would, you know, but ultimately they're able to twist it in a way that paints them as the victim. So even if it is tarnished for a bit, you know, they may not get as many donations to their gallery, they'll bounce back, and they have the money to bounce back and do whatever they need to host parties and things. But of course, people might not go to the parties for a little while, but they'll bounce back.
Gwendolyn will.
Yeah. At the very least, they'll just start selling off all their artifacts and just get all the money and then retire and be done. So, you know.
Cool.
But yeah. Anything else, Alan, for Gwendolyn?
No, that's it.
That's it? Okay. Last but not least, person.
Yeah.
And so, again, I'm going to do a little setup here. And this will kind of, once again, be sort of a freebie question regarding the investigation. As Varian said, those 2 sessions ago, it wasn't supposed to end this way. It's not how it was supposed to go. So, Varian, you sort of saw all the ways it could have gone. It was very much a turning point of all of this. And you saw many things, but in hindsight, you also saw eventually what came to be true, what happened. And that, due to Cornelius's words, Reyes composed himself and went to confront Ithranel at this gala. However, this was where things could have divulged into many, many paths. And what eventually was the turning point was that with using Cornelius's wisdom and insight into the situation, Reyes was a bit more keen in what Ithranel was doing. And as a magic user, Varian, Ithranel was wearing that pendant that made her more resistant to magic. Reyes was mutated by the Mournland that made him resistant to magic. So they're almost a perfect couple in that they could not use magic on each other. It was based on their words, and that's it. Nothing more. And because of a third party's insight, he became aware of what Ithranel was doing and what she was saying. And even though you saw all these paths that it could potentially have taken of her convincing him to do something, him convincing her to do something, maybe escaping or running downstairs and just using magic on all the guests and all this stuff, eventually what happened is that Reyes saw the truth of what was happening and snapped. And it was as clean and quick as that. He saw that she was trying to manipulate him and get him to do the dirty work, to do what he did in High Walls here. And it just pushed him to the edge. And you see how that has since ended. And you don't know whether or not, you know, Ithranel regrets that, if she realizes what she was doing, if she was doing it on purpose or unintentionally, or whatever the intention was, the end result is clear. Its case is closed. Reyes died. So Varian, in carrying that sort of insight of what really transpired. Case closes, questions are asked, people are interviewed. What does the future look like for Varian de Madani, and what is something that Varian wants to know about the case?
Well, it seems appropriate to launch into the former question. I think Varian is somewhat haunted by these visions of all of these potentialities and is deeply affected by this case in particular, its personal nature, its high death toll, and the loss of a friend. I think he struggles to come to grips with it. I mean, when he first started out, he was, kind of a naive, emotionally stunted kid. And, I mean, in the course of working with the other investigators, he's grown to such a degree. But, like, kind of the facade or mindset he went into this with, drawing from these detective novels that he would read as a kid.
Nancy Drow, I think it was.
Nancy Drow, yeah, has been slowly stripped away, but this kind of like was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I think he agonizes over the fact that he wasn't there to help Spike when he needed him, and that even though he was able to save a lot of people, he wasn't able to save everybody. And so I think what happens is Varian helps tie up the daelkyr loose ends, and assuming that, we all are enslaved, I think he goes on to graduate from Moorgrave, and in the days and weeks after Moorgrave, he prepares and leaves Sharn. Not forever. Sharn is still his home, but for a while, and for a couple reasons. One, he feels he needs some distance from the places and things that have happened there. And two, because I think he has become somewhat disillusioned with kind of the academia, navel-gazing, like, knowledge for knowledge's sake thing. He's seen how magic can be used to help people and how it can be used to hurt people. And he wants to more fully grasp how to use his magic to help people. And he thinks that traveling Eberron is a better way to do it than sitting poring over dusty old tomes in the university library. So I think he makes out and works to... I mean, Sharn itself is still suffering after the last war, but it's not the only place. And there are other people to be helped, other magics to learn, specifically chronomancy. Yeah, I mean, divination, looking into the future or sensing things is one thing, but being able to manipulate time itself... Yeah. And
Nice.
that's... Past that, I'm not sure, but that's where I will leave Varian.
Yeah. Do you have a question to ask about the case?
Yes, I do. And I was trying to work out how to word this so I could get as much information as possible with technically one question.
Game the system.
Yes. What is the story of the family Adana?
Story of the family. Adana. Oh, jeez.
Originally, their last name was just Anna, but then somebody was like saying their first name, and then they said Adana, and then that became their last name.
Yeah, when they
That's
came
it.
to
Yep.
Sharn,
That's it.
their last name was like Ashelian Tall Max, and then they humanized it. They were just like, "You're Adana now."
The story of the Adana family, keeping it a little bit short. Father, Elvin, and the woman that you met in the magic shop, who sort of referred to E39, in a daughter fashion. It was her actual mother. However young she may have looked, and she looked like a half-elf as well. Story with her mother, because that's the most confusing one. Her mother was in fact Death Knell, oh so long ago. And after sometime when Ithranel was old enough, her mother sort of revealed that, saying like, hey, because basically her mother was, or Ithranel was wondering why her mother was so secretive and was so, like, she didn't go outside, it was kind of reclusive, and eventually revealed the history, that she was once sort of this vigilante against the crown of Breland and all that good stuff. Went by the signature Death Knell. But in time has stepped back from that role. Ithranel, who started out as a street performer, which is where she met Rick in Greycastle the first time, also had an in with the Tyrants. So she she cashed in a little bit and got her mother's identity changed and got her magically de-aged a little bit. So therefore, eventually her mother sort of became her sister.
Interesting.
Yes. Once Ithranel stepped into the political spotlight of the upper city, sort of made a vow of not returning home, not to put her mother/sister in danger. Her father, who is a ghost bound to that shop now, or at least
brother.
bound to pretty much her mother. Not as much of an interesting story, but was also a member of the Aberrant Dragonmark organization, House Tarkanan. He was a member of House Tarkanan. Ended up dying because of an event during the last war. Something that people in the lower city would know about, the Crystal Tower falling, the floating tower falling. He was killed in that event. Just another sort of tick in the Alabama story. My mother's sister, my sister cousin. Just another tick in the reason why she was hated the last war so much. But so then Ithranel sort of took the idea and ran with it. Sort of a thing, a modeling thing. Like, yeah, my mother did it, I can do it too. And like, just kind of took it and ran with it. Took the little moniker of Death Knell on occasion and all sorts of stuff like that. So while her family wasn't like necessarily involved in what the recent events that occurred, because of all the magic things that they had access to and things they've collected throughout their lives, they kind of helped a little bit. And at least provided a place for Ray's to crash whenever he arrived back in Sharn. Very complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. So it seems, in connection with an earlier question about, I think, motivation, this was kind of like a generational task.
Almost like a inherited grief kind of thing as well.
Ooh,
too.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Doing it in honor of her husband, her mother's husband, their entire family, her mother's aims of fighting against the system and all all of those things just lumped into one chaotic individual. Okay. Any other things, Carson, for Varian's epilogue?
Ori stays by his side through it all.
Good.
And I think he'll keep in contact. He's not going full off the grid, but he's going to be gone for a few years at least.
And sort of to keep this nice and tight and quick for the remainder of this epilogue, in the last few days of that week after the events of the Aurora Gallery, Varian, you would be reached out to by your uncle Baron to join him at his small estate elsewhere in the city, essentially to apologize, to reach out to you and sort of connect and level with you and just say, "Are you okay? You can." Please, let's talk. Because he almost feels guilty to you specifically. He feels guilty in general, but guilty to you specifically in the family.
Did his wife survive?
His wife did survive. Yes.
Okay, good.
But ultimately, all sorts of amounts of apologizing. He's gonna probably have to do some time because he was the most involved with everything. So he's probably definitely going to jail for a little while. A huge
Was
mark.
he fully a stooge in this?
He was definitely a stooge.
Okay.
He was just enamored and not necessarily in love, but kind of in love. And so he was just, he was played for a fool.
But
yeah.
he still gave a lot of money, and he probably still
too much money.
Okay.
Lonnie might not get to go to college. So
Oh,
there's not Lonnie Madani. But as
the
sort of
brightest star amongst us all.
As sort of the closure to all this stuff, he reveals that the Aurora Gallery is going to be closed for a while, the Arum's going to be breaking for a bit, and all this kind of stuff. But he also makes note that in the aftermath of events, they noticed that there were some things missing from one of the exhibits. And so he gives you a package. He says, "Consider this a bit of reparations, a gift. Just take it home with you. Trust me."
Thank you, Uncle. And definitely throughout the conversation, I let him apologize, and
Grovel a bit.
Yeah, I'm not actively stirring the pot, but I'm just I'll let this go on.
And if anyone else recalls, really, one of the first interactions with Varian's uncle was him awkwardly walking up and just being like, "How's school going?" And you're like, "Yeah, it's fine." He was like, "Well, you better take it seriously. Your dad paid a lot of money for you to go." He was kind of a dick about it.
Funneling thousands of gold to his fucking murderer girlfriend.
Yeah, all the time. So yeah, he deserves to grovel a little bit.
Yeah, and this feels very fucking rich sleazy, but maybe I'll reach out to the King's Citadel and be just if he has to do a little time, some reparations to society, that's fine. But not too much. He's
Just a little.
He's not a very smart man. But I will graciously accept the package from him and kind of give a generic all mistakes will be in your past at some point kind of bullshit.
Something that's reassuring in the moment, and afterwards you're like, "What the fuck? That doesn't mean anything."
Yeah.
So yes, he leaves you with that, and you head home to unwind, do whatever else. When you open it, you even still find a note addressed to the Aurora Gallery, describing the contents of the donation. And you see within, wrapped up in parchment paper, 2 cogs of the orrery. 5 of 6.
We have 5.
And as far as you know, the 6th lies in the vaults of Moorgrave University.
Heist, 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 heist.
Yeah, maybe before I leave.
You got one more thing
Maybe
to do.
one more job.
One more
I'm
job.
telling you, the city
And then
pulls
we're
you
out.
back in.
The city.
You can't
That
leave.
city, man. So with that, I'm gonna poll you guys. We're at the 2-hour mark. We can either save sort of open question asking for its own separate Sharn Nights After Dark thing, or we can take a little break and do that now, and you can just ask a bunch of questions. It's up to you guys.
I say we save it for later, so we have a lot of. I also want some time to think
Save
about it.
Yeah.
I
You
want
can
to.
be I'm gonna go with Jacob. I can go to bed at a reasonable time, and I can make a list of.
Questions.
I can pour over my 30 pages of notes, and just really dig in there. Just be like, hey, remember that guy in session 3? What was his deal?
What was this about?
Remember that character you made up on a whim?
Yeah.
What's his deal? And you're
What's
just
his
like,
biography?
you're like, oh god.
Yeah. What's
Every
going on with
DM's
Sam
like worst
Snorkel?
question. You're like, I don't know, man. He's out there.
He's still being a goblin, I guess.
Okay, so I assume that sounds like we'll wait until a later time and do an After Dark.
That sounds good with me.
Perfect. We should be doing a Halloween one-shot next week. That might be in the works. We need to do a little bit of chatting about that, but thank you everyone, my lovely players, people who tune in, Jeremy, thank you, and Rachel, for always being here.
I think M's still there too. I
Is
don't
Emily
know.
here?
Probably.
Oh, there it is. Emily for being here.
Hey,
Just thank you guys for always being there. And thank you for being here for the epilogue of the Sharn Nights campaign. The truly last session. We'll be doing some After Dark behind the scenes stuff in the future. Subscribe to my Patreon, check out my stream, show up for chat, all that normal stuff. But thank you guys so much. And sadly, we will not be back here at the same Sharn time, same Sharn place, but we'll be continuing doing other stuff. And we hope to see you then. So, good night.
Goodbye, all. Shine, 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 shine.